India, a subcontinent with a long history. A land of legend, fantasy and reality. An encounter with an amazing fairy tale world. A country that extends from the Himalayas in the north to the semi-desert terrain and tropics of the south. A country of incredible contrasts and full of fascinating splendor. Delhi, the political and administrative capital of India, and the largest democracy in the world. A melting pot of both culture and religion. A constantly expanding metropolis built on the site of 12 former cities, and center of power for almost 1,000 years. Jama Masjid, the Friday Mosque, is one of Old Delhi's main landmarks, bequeathed to the city by the Mughal king Shah Jahan. Close to the mosque is the bazaar district of Chandni Chowk, a busy commercial area. A journey by bicycle rickshaw is a great way to get around the city, a real adventure in these hectic streets. Within a well-arranged park encircled by a wall is Raj Ghat, a memorial to the country's former political leaders. Gurdwara Bangla Sahib is the city's largest Sikh temple. Sikhs believe in one God and the doctrines of 10 gurus. In a community kitchen, free food is provided to the faithful. The huge red sandstone fortress on the eastern banks of the Yamuna is one of the finest buildings of the former Mughal realm, the Red Fort. Shady arcades surround the large Connaught Circus, the circular city centre from where all the main routes begin. Rajpaths is the name of an impressive 300-metre wide road flanked by green swathes and luxuriant fountains. At the eastern end of the road is Indian Gate, a 42-metre high Roman-style triumphal arch. The small park contains a futuristic-looking observatory, the Jantar Mantar, created for the famous Maharaja Jai Singh of Jaipur. It's a small replica of a more splendid and still working observatory in his hometown. The old Purana Kila fort is situated on a small hill. In the early 16th century, it belonged to the Afghan monarch Sher Shah. On the southeastern edge of the huge metropolis of Delhi is the large tomb of the famous Emperor Humayun. Construction of this fine mausoleum was due to the endeavours of the emperor's wife, Haji Begum. The architecturally spectacular Baha'i temple was built in the shape of a white lotus blossom. It's a sanctuary for a religious community that was founded in 1863 by a Persian, Mirza Hussain Ali Nuri. Ghiyas-ud-Din Tughlaq was the founder of Delhi's third city, that is situated on the eastern periphery of today's sprawling metropolis. His amazingly well-preserved tomb exudes power and magnificence. Over 6 kilometers of walls once protected this huge fortified city, whose buildings have long since disappeared. Sadly, the founder of the city died before its construction was completed. The National Rail Museum contains an interesting collection of nostalgic locomotives, carriages, and memorabilia. Indian railway history. The Safdar-Jung Mausoleum was built in the final years of Mughal rule, an architectural monument of this golden era. The ancestors of the mighty Mughals, Genghis Khan and Timur-Lenk, ruled here for more than 250 years. Today, the Lodi Gardens are the green lungs of Delhi. The monarchs of the Lodi dynasty had their tombs built here. On the southern periphery of Delhi is an architectural relic that dates back to the 12th century, the Qutb Minar complex, birthplace of the Islamic epoch, and the first large mosque with a courtyard and royal tombs. Rajasthan, land of kings, one of the most unique and colourful provinces in northern India. Our journey begins in Jaipur, the Pink City, where the buildings consist of the reddish stone of the surrounding landscape. The main landmark of the city, the Palace of the Winds, is a facade with vented bay windows, whence the women could observe the street unseen. And Jantar Mantha is an observatory that Maharaja Jai Singh, who was crowned when only 12 years of age, had built next to his palace. On our journey to the nearby hills, we pass the pretty water castle of Jal Mahal. Prior to arriving at the original residence of the Rajput clan, that is situated amid adventurous stone scenery, the strategic Amber Fort was built into rock walls. Man Singh resided here as a contemporary of the Mughal Emperor Akbar, long before his successor founded Jaipur. The influential principality was ruled from this splendid fortress for more than 6 centuries, a place of power and beauty. This is where the Maharaja lived with his favourite wives, with adjoining sleeping areas and official rooms, and natural ventilation and a spectacular view. Shekhawati is the name of an area that lies along a former caravan route. In the 19th century, Sikar was one of the most prosperous trading posts in the region, but little remains of those colourful times. The prosperity of the former businessmen who traded goods between Lahore and Delhi is no longer apparent. "30 kilometers to the north is Lakshman Mangar, that was founded by Lakshman Singh, the Raja of Sikar. Here, the local people profited from the caravan trains that flourished at that time. This is highlighted by a palace, a temple, and fine buildings. Fatehpur is located on a trading route further north and was built in the late 15th century. Today, nothing remains of the warlike incidents that once took place here. The British rule of India that began at the onset of the 19th century promoted peaceful trade and brought great wealth to several families. This created the great trading houses of Shekhawati, the Havelis, or the isolated. They were similar to the Persian caravanserai, a two-story building with inner courtyard that served as a storage room and stable, the occupants residing on the second story. Outside the city gates is the desert. Jaisalmer, the residence of the Bati princes on the edge of the Thar Desert, was also an important supply point for the caravans. The impressive fortress rises above the town. The lanes are flanked with splendid patrician houses with decorated sandstone facades, balconies and porches. The former wealth of this town is plain to see. The small artificial Gadsisa lake on the periphery of the town indicates the importance of water in this desert region. It is still used as a religious sanctuary. Today, the nearby desert is popular for tourist excursions. The Golden City embodies like no other the desert culture of a bygone age. Those days when camel caravans loaded with silk and spices arrived exhausted at this extreme outpost of civilization. Ajmer, India's most important place of pilgrimage for Muslims, features many historic buildings. 14 kilometers away is an important Hindu pilgrimage destination, Pushkar, an accumulation of whitewashed buildings and temples situated around the sacred Pushkar Lake. According to legend, the god Brahma dropped a lotus blossom. On the spot on which it landed on the ground, a spring was created that developed into a lake. Jodhpur, the blue city. In bright sunlight, its sandstone buildings shine out in intense blue. On a rock plateau above the city is a large and impregnable fortress with 36-meter-high walls, the Marangarh Fort. The power and splendor of those times is highlighted by these remarkable sedan chairs. It was a time of great monarchs on the edge of the Thar Desert. Close to the palace is this region's royal graveyard, Jaswantara. Yet the shining white walls of this marble pavilion are more like a palace than a tomb. Chittagong is the oldest fortress in Rajasthan and has a sad story to tell. Once its proud Rajput inhabitants committed communal suicide. The women threw themselves into a fire, and the men died honorably in an unwinnable struggle against the Mughal Akbar. They refused to surrender. Since then, the palaces, towers and temples of the former capital of the Rajput realm of Mewar have lain empty. They were never again inhabited. The well-preserved ruined city towers above the modern town, and the palace of the Rajputin continues to reflect in the pond that is located in the uppermost section of the fortress. The white temples of Ranakpur are the sanctuaries of the Jains. They are situated in a picturesque valley to the west of the Aravalli Mountains, north of Udaipur. At around the same time that Buddhism was introduced to this area, Jainism also arrived, the religion of the country's great hero, Mahavira. A forest of stone pillars supports various cupolas that are decorated with complex geometrical patterns and the images of numerous goddesses. The temples were built in around 1500 AD and are one of the finest examples of Indian architecture and stonemasonry. It took 60 years for this, one of the most beautiful temple complexes in Rajasthan, to be completed. It's a place of silence and calm. Set alongside an artificial lake and surrounded by picturesque mountains, Udaipur is one of the most beautiful cities in the Indian province of Rajasthan. But the reason for the establishment of this city had tragic consequences. It was here that Uday Singh retreated when his Chittagong fortress was captured by the Mughal Emperor Akbar. The white marble monuments of the Mewar monarchs outside the gates of Udaipur are full of colourful and dramatic history. Rajasthan, the land of the Maharajas in all its splendour. A living fairy tale beneath the desert sky. Agra was once the imposing metropolis of the Mughal monarchs. Today, the city has lost nothing of its medieval atmosphere. Emperor Akbar moved his residence from Delhi to Agra, and the palace city, the Red Fortress, was 3 generations in construction. A 2.5-kilometer long wall with many bastions surrounds a huge inner courtyard and numerous palace buildings. The ruling monarch and his royal household once held official events in the public audience hall, the 70-meter-long Diwan-i-Am. Artistic stonemasonry decorates a number of red sandstone arcades. Most of the buildings are of marble. In spite of so much destruction and plundering of the buildings, the amazing wealth of the former Mughals is plain to see. Akbar's grandchild, Shah Jahan, added various decorative elements from European palaces to these buildings in order to emphasize his power. From each corner of India, Persia, and Central Asia, craftsmen came here to take part in the creation of the palaces and mausoleums. But Jahan's son, Aurangzeb, imprisoned his father in the Red Fort until his death, and once again moved his royal residence to Delhi. From his prison cell, Shah Jahan was able to stare at the symbol of his eternal love, to the tomb of his favorite wife, Mumtaz Mahal, who died at an early age. The shining white and majestic building, with its large and impressive dome, is the final resting place of the Indian Mughal and his beloved wife. The Taj Mahal is one of the most famous buildings in the world. Its perfect proportions and exquisite design depict an image of Islamic paradise. The Taj Mahal was built between 1630 and 1653. The building's Persian character is due to its first architect, Isa Effendi, who originally came from Iran. A total of 20,000 workers were responsible for building this truly unique, world-famous mausoleum. Even viewed from the Yamuna River, the Taj Mahal looks like a fairy tale vision of the 1001 Nights. The crowded streets of Agra are full of noise and hustle and bustle. The city lies on the banks of the Yamuna River and on the Grand Trunk Road. It became important when Sultan Sikandar Lodi relocated his capital from Delhi to Agra in 1504. The Mughal dynasty followed 22 years later. The monarchy moved once again to Delhi. Agra was plundered on several occasions and was finally conquered by the British in 1803. The Etimad-ud-Doula Mausoleum is a jewel of Mughal architecture that the wife of Shah Jahangir had created for her parents. Her father was a nobleman who had escaped from Persia and became a powerful minister in Jahangir's court. This brought him high honor, albeit following his death. Another tomb was also built on the banks of the Jamuna River for Azal Khan, the Chinese grave, Chini Karauza. A splendid octagonal building adorned with ornate tiles and stone sarcophagi built in memory of the learned court functionary who originated in Persia. Around 500 kilometers southeast of Agra is Sarnath, a place that is as sacred for Buddhists as Banaras is for those of the Hindu faith. Sarnath is often referred to as the birthplace of Buddhism. It's believed that Buddha delivered his first sermon here following his enlightenment. Since Buddha's sermon in 528 BC, the doctrine extended across large areas of Asia. So the village of Sarnath gradually developed. Even today, the remains of this holy place have a certain atmosphere. Because although the buildings are in ruins, Buddhists continue to visit the remains of Sarnath's monasteries and temples. After a short journey, we reach Banaras, that is today known as Varanasi. The fascinating hustle and bustle on the Ganga, which is what the Indian people call the river Ganges, begins at dawn. There's a great deal going on. The fastest and most comfortable way to discover the promenade is by boat. Its western banks are fascinating. In addition to ritual bathing, the Ganges is also used for such non-religious ceremonies as the washing of clothes. A magnificent scene. The city's most holy place is the Dasashvamedha Ghat. The final point on a boat tour on the river Ganges is the Manikanika Ghat in the north. To end one's life here is the highest aim of the Hindus, and it assures them salvation from the eternal circle of birth and death. Varanasi is one of the oldest places in the world and is India's holiest city for Hindus. It is said that it is older than history itself, and even older than tradition. About 50,000 Brahmins live in Varanasi, and they have turned the city into a museum of ancient Hindu rites. Here, the past is still very much alive. By traditional boat, we travel to the opposite bank of the holy river Ganges. The picturesque Ghats are a popular backdrop for Indian movie productions. Each day, thousands of pilgrims come to the holy center of the city, and the main attraction is not only the Ghats, but the river itself. Each evening, traditional prayer ceremonies end the day on the Ganges in the holy city of Benares, a city full of living religion and ritual ceremonies.